Luke, we both live in Southern California. The masses in LA base their lives upon pornography and media narratives. It's nonsense. On what basis would you say that? They make decisions on the basis of what's good for them. So normal people don't spend a great deal of time with pornography. A normal person is not spending 2 hours a night with pornography. If you're spending 2 hours a night with pornography, you are failing at life. And this is some sop that you use. Southern California was overwhelmingly voting Republican until about year 2000. Now, was Southern California voting Republican because the media in Southern California was so pro-Republican? No. Was Southern California voting Republican until the last 20 years because pornography implanted vote Republican themes in its pornography? No, that's nonsense. People are not putty that the media just manipulate, that elites just manipulate. Because if people were so easily manipulable, they wouldn't be here. They wouldn't have passed on their genes. They would have died out. All right. There's no way that you can evolve. A population cannot evolve to be gullible. Otherwise, it wouldn't be here. The whole way that natural selection works is that it passes on approaches to life that work. And if you have an approach to life that doesn't work, such as gullibility, you're not going to be able to perpetuate it over many generations.
There are a lot of people who simply go through your average state college and they wind up hating Western culture, and they probably never will amount to, fame or glory in life. I don't want to say they'll never amount to much. It's a little harsh, but and then they'll never sit on the board of a publicly traded company. That's almost for certain. And yet they do believe this stuff, and they're not quite special, and they're certainly more closer to average than elite. And it seems like the post-secondary education system turns out more and more of this element with each passing year. And it's a very bad situation. It's not limited to one, demographic group, sex, whatever. It's across the board. Do you have anything to say about this?
Yeah, people did not evolve to be gullible. So the education system is not churning out people who hate Western civilization. The percentage of people in the West who hate Western civilization is probably well below 5%. The percentage of people in the West who have a low regard for Western civilization is quite small. Your average American thinks anyone who's not an American is a loser. Your average Australian thinks anyone who's not an Australian is a loser. Your average Frenchman thinks anyone who's not French is a loser. Overall, people have pretty high self-esteem about their nations and about Western civilization. It's a relatively tiny group, and it's not because they're being churned out by the education system, because if the education system could churn people out, then virtually nobody would vote for Donald Trump. The educational system is overwhelmingly controlled by people on the left, and yet people go through the system and they still vote 50-50 Democrat and Republican. So people are not nearly as malleable. People are not automatons who get turned into zombies because of an educational or media system. So I'm just curious, what percentage of people do you believe, Joseph, in the West despise Western civilization? I would put the number as well under 5%.
Well, there is a number of people, it probably is well under 5%, that actually have a comprehensive knowledge of what Western civilization is, and they despise it. And that would be a lot of people in academia, the media, some multinational corporations, and definitely those people qualify. Then there are others who they influence, not in like some conspiratorial way, but it's just people are young, their minds are very malleable. Even if they have a gullible personality, they tend to be impressionable and idealistic. And I think people you can certainly take someone who comes from a Republican, God-fearing family and turn them into a sort of secular, progressive, reliable Democratic voter from the span of 4 years of state college. I've seen that happen myself. I would not say these people, though, consciously hate the West. I would say that they consciously are guilty of themselves in one way or another. For cultural, it could go back to the ancient European cultural traits that I mentioned, or it could also be because of Christianity in a cultural sense that's more immediate. I would agree with both perspectives. But there are these people, and they are out there, and they seem to be very serious about not liking a lot of what society is, and it's very unfortunate. And there's no question that the more educated a person is, the more they go through post-secondary education system, the more likely they are to vote Democratic. I mean, I think among the highest tier of educated people with doctorates, the number that voted for Hillary Clinton, I don't remember the exact number, but it was astronomically high. And I would imagine that it would have been even higher if not for including medical doctors there who are more, they're probably split close to 50-50. And I would throw optometrists into that as well, and dentists. I don't know if they qualify as medical doctors, but I'll lump them in. But for people with like PhDs, they are quite a leftist group, and many people with master's degrees are the same thing. So it seems to me like the more time you spend in academia, the more likely you are to vote on the left. But the thing of it is it that academia is transforming your mind? For some people, I think that's true. Or is it that a certain type of person with a certain mindset is attracted to academia, and therefore they skew, obviously, what the political orientation of anybody who comes out on the other end of academia is going to be. So this is a very much an open question in my mind. And before we get to the next question, Luke, do you have anything to say about it?
Yeah, I don't think it's the state college that was turning these, rock-ribbed Republicans into Democrats. I think that people's political orientation is like pretty much every other orientation, dominantly genetic, and so it's simply once they got into an environment where it was acceptable to live out who they really were, then they started doing it. And as for people in the more years they spend in tertiary education, the more left-wing they become. Again, I don't think it's the educational system that is transforming people. It's that people who are left-wing are much more likely to stay in universities, while people who are right-wing would pursue other endeavors. To be on the left, part of what it means to be on the left is to be continually seeking out the new and the novel. And it's not new and it's not novel to say good things about Western civilization. So it is new and novel to criticize your own society, to criticize the heroes of your people's past. That's a new and novel thing to do. Now, they're going to produce children who then rebel against them by venerating Robert E. Lee and the Confederacy. But to be on the left is to be continually seeking out, new ways of thinking, new ways of living life, and these new ways will usually be rebelling against the status quo, meaning Western Civ.
A poll in the 90s found most Americans thought the US would still be the world's superpower in 2050. By 2006, a majority thought it would be China by 2050. I saw George Bush presidency causing a huge decline. George W. Bush presidency definitely was something that was a depressant on the country's self-image, and his folly in Iraq. The Iraq War was far more than just America losing militarily, which is an injury to the country's ego.